before I even think about the answer to that, I want to play devil's advocate a little bit here with you, Randy. The word fairness, in my mind, is a very tricky word. It's going to create problems everywhere. Again, it's a perception. What's fair? Like you're asking, who's going to determine what's fair? And I just spent a lot of time yesterday with a friend of mine, and I was talking quite a bit with him about the way we word things. He was, just to give you an example, he was talking about evil. There's evil in the world. And I said, I don't use that word anymore. After George W. Bush started talking about that axis of evil, I thought, danger, danger, you're going to create more trouble in the world calling someone evil. If he had said, I believe that Iraq is evil, that would have been a lot easier for me to digest. If somebody says to me, I have a belief that something is a certain way, I can take it in more. If somebody says, I believe that that's not fair, what's happening out there, then we have a conversation. Okay, what do you believe is fair? Instead of, oh, that's not fair. Well, I can't argue. Now we have an argument. That's where the trouble is it's the way we're communicating things. As soon as we say something is this way, we're in trouble because this mouse here, in order for this mouse to exist, not mouse around, everything not mouse has to exist. So as soon as I say this is not fair, then everything that's fair comes up. Do you know what I'm saying? For every statement we make, the opposite is true. So it's insane to get into something is and something isn't.
That's law of polarity. Yeah.
Oh, is it? I don't really understand what that is. I wasn't here
That
for that.
that and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in 3 weeks
Oh,
too. But
law of
that
polarity.
everything.
Right, exactly. The polar, right, the opposites. I get it. Right. Yeah, sure. So to me, nothing really is. Do you know what I mean? Only love is. And that's what I hear you talking about, Randy. You're really talking about what is the loving thing to do instead of what's the fair thing to do. That would be always my question to ask. Now I get it. Politicians aren't going to sit there and go, what's the loving thing to do? But to me, the trick would be to find that verbiage for them that would work, that would be asking that question rather than them sitting there going, that's fair. Because that immediately says the other guy goes, no, it's not fair. That's fair. That's not. That is not. Immediately, as soon as we make something a definite statement, we bring up the opposite. And now we can have an argument now. Does that make sense? Am I making
It
sense
does.
here?
And I think the determination would be very simple, at least referencing here now how we vote with our dollar, we'll vote with our wallets. So again, in this hypothetical, I can't say exactly what that would be, but it just is in the market right now. If nobody cares about my new whiz bang coffee cup and stuff, then it has no valuable for society, and it just dies in its natural order of things. It's not benefiting the society enough to be sustainable. So in regards to, again, this hypothesis of mine, how eventually all the muck in the water would eventually settle to the bottom, being very pragmatic, again, what works continues. What doesn't work dies.
Right.
Because why would it again in the just look at nature? What sustains itself has,
Right.
lack of a better term, a purpose. Again, it is fulfilling its purpose, I should say. The tree gives us shade from the again, a home for the birds and such. It fulfills its purpose, and therefore trees continue, But and I can't think of the polar opposite of that, but I hope I've made a point and stuff. The purpose would become self-evident over the course of time. And again, it's just like, well, again, kind of the whole thing when I was trying to say, like, Randy, go gather sticks to keep the tribe warm at night. If everybody's got a gas stove, Randy gathering sticks won't last very long. Stick gatherers just will go by the wayside, kind of stuff.
Although we may
So
be
again,
going
but
back to that if we're not
right,
careful,
but I think if there is a status quo where we're talking about things that's like, hey, look here, the simple truth is we're all going to see things uniquely and differently. Okay. Thinking is how we structure reality. Okay. That's how we have our psychological experience. And this is just a given that you are going to see this differently. I don't care even if we can say we have the same highest values and we're in the same room and we're looking at the same thing and we both use that word good or evil or whatever in stuff. There's still a color, there's still a bias, there's still a relativity that comes through each and everyone's mind. So if that is a given, a known, that you just understand that everybody sees that in their own unique way, and to bicker and argue about trivial things is at best entertainment, but typically it's just an act of futility. It's like you want to argue and have a good time, let's play.
Knock yourself out.
But in regards to the benefit of the individual as well as the society, it's just kind of go, let's just cut to the chase and stuff. We all got gas stoves. Forget about your sticks, Randy, unless you want to
Right,
start building straw men or whatever. So anyway,
right.
that's my
Well, when I hear you say let the dust settle or whatever, what came to my mind was, but also when you cook chicken, the fat comes to the surface. And to me, what that means is we're in a pressure cooker right now, especially on the eve of election night. There's a real pressure cooker going on in our country. And what that's going to do is the fat, all the pain and the shit is going to rise to the surface and has to be dealt with before the dust can settle. And there has to be a lot of love and for this to work, there's going to need to be a lot of love and acceptance around this whole thing, no matter who wins. You know, the only way this is going to work is for whoever of us can possibly do it is to, say, let me see the love in this. Let me find the purpose, the best possible outcome of whatever happens. I don't know if that quite addresses what you were saying. I was only picking up parts of this, but that, I'm glad you brought that up. The eve of election night. This is probably the most polarizing election night in my lifetime that I've ever witnessed. And I've studied this course in miracles. I don't know, if you all know that, but the course just teaches only love is real. And all this other stuff that's going on isn't really real. All of your past, except its beauty, is gone, and nothing is left but a blessing. That's my favorite quote from that course. So, really, all that's happening in any one moment, we can sit there and go, oh my God, that happened and this happened, but all that's left is a blessing. I use it all, I say it all the time, and that pushes me
Janet,
back in a moment.
Janet, I want to put something in here too, because this is perfect to me how this is how this conversation is evolving, because what we are observing in the chironic flow of things is that what normally happens is when we get into this stewardship phase, when it's time to really have the discussion about where we really need to focus our attention, where we really need to send the love. What our
Mm-hmm.
society is often conditioned to do is to forget about the commons, forget about the caring critics, the what we call the curators, and throw the ball back to the pioneers, whose job is, well, let's just make money. Let's just create a business to fix it. So what that does is it
Mm-hmm.
bypasses the people who are the caring critics, whose job it is to find out why it's not working. And usually the people in the market, the pioneers and the cultivators, they don't want to hear about that. They don't want to hear about why it's not working, because that means taking a deep look within. And then it never gets to the scouts, who are trying to tell you, well, this is exactly what we have to do. But because we've never been through the why, we don't even get to the what. So we focus on the who instead, which is the pioneer. The personalities, the loudest personalities, are the ones who get who seem to be getting the airtime. And that's why there's this stagnation, this overflow, this pulling of power, that is corrupt, because the commons are not getting their say. It's not passing to the caring critics, whose job it is, to really have the deep discussions about why it's not working. And that's what's
Well, see,
true.
this is interesting. You would bring up the question, the word why.
Mhm.
I did some kind of training years ago for mental health. I work in the mental health field, and this training was very interesting. They said, don't ask the question why. Even the Course in Miracles and its subsequent books, The Course of Love, say, don't ask why. They say, look at what is, it's more like, look at what is, what's happening, and ask yourself, how do we get that thing back to, well, for me, this is my questions. How do I return that thing to love, whatever that thing is, instead of picking it apart? Why is this what, your brain could go, berserk. Now I do have done a lot of looking at my trauma of my past. And I'm just getting to the point where it's like, all right, yeah, it helps me to understand why I'm still scared of certain things. But beyond a certain point, it's like, so what? It's gone. You know, what's next? What do I want to do to get me back to love next?
Mhm. And
And you have
that's
to get real skilled with the people you're talking about, the leaders who don't know this language. It's a real skill to get them back to that question without even using the word love,
Mhm.
because they're not
Yeah,
going to, most don't trust that word even.
right.
Oh, I thought I was in love. I don't know what love is.
Mhm. See, those are the people who are the regulators who are focused on the question of when to get it done, and the cultivators who are focused on how to get it done. But the ones who are really coming up with the answers as to why, it's that's the kind of resistance they're up against, is that they don't want to know why. People don't want to know why because it can lead to madness. But there are people who are born born to be able to guide us through that murky territory. Kylie even said about the scout. What the scout does is it decomposes the dead. It decomposes what it's not working, so that it can point to the direction of what is viable.
What works. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And to kind of, I don't know, talking about conversations with God, I believe it's in book 3. God presents the question to Neil. It's like, how does this thought serve me? Or does this thought serve me? I
Yeah.
believe that is exactly. So that's a thing, it's like, okay, so it's very similar to, again, how do I return this with love? Love will serve. Again, being very pragmatic. Okay, you say love is this, I say love is that. Some people may say love, there is no such thing as love, whatever, and such. But it's not there's no empirical evidence. You can't prove love, but it's the kind of thing that's existed since society. Everybody has an opinion, at least, on it. And stuff. It's formless, but doggone it affects everyone in some shape or form. Unfortunately, sometimes it's quite a bitter taste for people, but that's just the nature of the way.
But
Um,
I would argue that I would say that if it's bitter, it ain't love. It's
I
something.
agree with that, and which comes back to is, again, this idea of love. How does this serve me? Again, if I'm saying love is a sham, how does that serve me? Oh, it's
Mm.
protecting myself from ever being hurt.
Right.
Interesting.
Good.
Yes. Okay. And it's certainly, again, it's a very natural human thing. We do not want to psychologically be hurt, abused, tortured, even. Again, how thoughts are a reality and such. These things that can make people do all kinds of things. And we could probably talk for hours on that alone. But again, it's back to again this law of relativity is a matter of a process of thinking, and there's the cultural conscious, so it's the society, but then of course there's those individuals, again, as Mike's referring to, the comments, and really truly, for this change to be enacted, it is not coming from the top down. They're going to do everything in their power to protect the system because it serves them. Back to, again, how this thought, oh well, it serves me in X, Y, and Z and stuff, and we don't want it to change, but it's not working. Again, it seems to be the common thread in all conversations, regardless of who you are and who you endorse as a political candidate. Everybody says it's not working. Okay. which is different people focus on different problems and therefore they have different solutions. And again, it's filtered through our minds and again, of how we see this and that kind of stuff. But there seems to be a very common consensus that this is not sustainable how things are going. Now, of course, then again, what is the alternative? What's the next step? What I think is the series of these conversations.
Yep.
And I'll end it.
Yep. Thank you, Randy. Yes, and I'll segue into the last contrast between the three structures. So the market is constrained by state rules and resource availability. The state is constrained by social contract. And Kylie observes here, the state is now corrupted by money. The commons is constrained by resource availability and other natural influences and social norms. Now it's suffering from extraction.
When you say the commons, you mean the common man? The middle class? What are you talking about?
The commons is it's a good question. I would say the commons are the people who, yeah, I would say, someone who is considered a commoner, someone who is not directly benefiting from the actions of the market or the state. These conversations and this model that's emerging from this is very much commons driven, where it's about peer to peer and not so much about hierarchy, where I feel like in the market there's a hierarchy based on net worth. In the government, there's a hierarchy based on a position where someone is voted into, and I have my opinions about that and how that's engineered. But yeah, we'll say that there's a hierarchy there based on a structure that was created by our forefathers who were supposed to democratically elect into those positions. So yeah, so anyway, those are the contrasts as far as what are the constraints. One thing that comes up for me a lot is how there does seem to be, and again, this comes back to the privatization and the keeping secrets, the deeper nature of the relationship between the market and the state, where it's observed that the state is corrupted by money and that the social constraints are what kind of keep the commons constrained as well too, because we're often told what to think about other people. We're often told these stories about how we should treat people from outside our tribe, outside our nation, outside our belief system. So that's what kind of constrains the commons. So it's a curiosity to look at, what is the deeper relationship there between the three substrates when considering these constraints, especially when it comes to the influence of money, of how money changes hands between market interests and state interests.
Well, since I've been doing the lead on each of these responses, so if I'm hearing the word extractive correctly,
Mhm.
so there's a scarcity by design.
Mhm.
Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes,
Okay.
and we're actually going to go into detail about that this month. Yes.
Yeah, but so therefore, then again, what would fall in law with natural law? Again, that we are all one, and there would be a sufficiency. So again, we are in a and as I touched briefly on clean water, let's be frank. Again, we certainly we're in a first world and all this kind of stuff. We have this perspective, again, this understanding and stuff. I don't think there's any, and it's certainly to happen in Flint, Michigan as well too. Having clean water, I think most human beings would think that this is something we are entitled to. Mhm. But there's billions of people that do not have. But yes, I don't see any, again, in my limited experience and stuff, why there should not be clean water for 8 billion, even as they talk about how this country, this earth cannot sustain growth. I think 10 billion people are predicted in about another 10 years, or there's just
Mhm.
so there should still be the filtering process so every human being can have clean water for it. Again, so there's a sufficiency of this element that is life-giving. Okay. But why doesn't it happen? I don't know. I'd have to say that those that are in a position of power have not seen put it enough of a priority to enact it among the citizens of the society for whatever reason. And again, there's probably a cornucopia of reason, but I would bet dollars to donuts. It's for them to retain their position of power and to protect their position, that they have something in limited supply that they will dole out to those that are in alignment with their political views and their agendas and such. And if you don't fall in line with their ways and such, then you are going to have consequences and stuff. Now, again, I could have totally get back to having incomplete understandings and incorrect. This could be totally a bunch of narrative stories that I've created in my head, but I believe in it enough that I've just expressed them.
And that's the purpose of these recordings too, Randy, is to open up that conversation, to invite them in to be able to tell their side of the story.
Right. So anyway, in closing and stuff, again, we're talking about is the commons, the everyday Joe, regardless whether you got no money in the bank or not even a bank account, to the one who's got a lot of zeros in their bank account and stuff. The common person and such. We have a perception of scarcity of something. There's not enough. Hey, love. We use the love word. There's not enough love to go around stuff. But is there truly, in reality, when we get past the agendas that have been thrust upon us collectively and individually and stuff, is there a sufficiency in all actuality? That's my $1,000,000 question.
Yes, the answer is not just sufficiency, but the perfect amount. Now, here's the thing that I learned doing the Course in Miracles that saved my ass. The Course says that we are already, everything is love. We're already in that state. But many of us, most of us have forgotten. And the reason we're here on this earth is to remember that. So the answer is yes. Love is always here. It's never went anywhere. Nothing ever changed about it. We just think it did. Again, back to perception. And so I believe, based on that, and I've also seen documentaries about this, that there is enough. There's more than enough for everyone. And yes, we can have everything we need. I truly believe that one day we'll be able to snap our fingers and there'll be clean water for everyone. I just don't I think collectively our minds aren't there yet right now. But I think we're able to do exactly what Jesus did, turn water to wine, if indeed he did, that we are capable. We're only using, what do they say, 13% of our brains right now. Can you imagine? The more aligned we get, the more closer we get, maybe centuries from now or whatever, but I do believe one day we won't need to do as much as we're doing to clean the air or to do all these things. We'll be able to think it, but in the meantime, yes, we're at that place where we've got to do something about it. But I do honestly believe that everything we need, we've got. We just don't know. We haven't figured out. I think you said by design. I heard the word design. I think we just haven't figured out how to design that yet. And I think that all the most greatest geniuses and engineers in the world will probably not be able to figure that out until they're coming from a more loving space. That's my guess.
Thank you,
The
Janet.
more loving everything gets, the more they're going to figure it out.
Go ahead, Nefertiti, and then I'm going to segue into my final piece tonight. Go ahead.
This is amazing. Good stuff. I have the question that came to mind for me was when you used the word norms for the comments, and I'm thinking maybe our norms are not natural. And isn't it funny how in conversating about water that the state is represented by piping, and the state seems to determine who gets the water and who doesn't. So yeah, I really I'm jiving with all of that, and it is possible. It is possible. So that's all.
Great. Thank you, Nefertiti. All right, so I'm going to segue here into my final piece. And again, I'm just going to look at my slides and put it in on, edit it in post-production. And then we'll spend the last 10 minutes, having just open conversation about what you heard tonight. So the at-home viewer will now see a picture of a pyramid. Okay, so if you can picture a pyramid at the top, it kind of pinnacles up at the top. And at the very top of that pyramid, and my screen, there we go, there is a tip, a capstone, where I have a label that says the market is at the moment valued at 315 plus trillion in debt, global debt. So that's how much this is my truth. It does not necessarily mean it is a fact, but my truth is that the market, in terms of monetary figures right now, is worth 315 trillion dollars in privatized global debt. So that's how I kind of categorize how much the market is worth. Right below that capstone is a thinner layer where now, all of the centralized governments, they're global. Now, this is on a global level. The GDP, that means the product that every country has produced, throughout our history, is at $105 trillion. So I want you to imagine, 310 trillion in debt is 3 times more than the 105 trillion that all of the countries have produced over the course of history. So debt outpaces GDP 3 to 1. Now, at the base of the pyramid, which makes up almost, I would probably say about 99% of the pyramid, is the commons. Now, if we all live a 72-year lifespan, and there's 8 billion of us on this planet at the moment, what that makes up is that we have something of value to give, and that is 5 quadrillion hours of however we choose to spend our time, whether it is to help the market, whether it is to help our government or our country, or whether it's sleeping, playing, whatever we choose to decide to do with our lives. We have 5 quadrillion hours, which is 25 times more than the debt and the GDP. If we could just somehow change the rules to make that hour worth something more. And as I go down my slides here, what I'm showing here now is that power tends to flow up, gets consolidated and privatized, while the debt kind of flows down and trickles out amongst the commons. So now I'm showing a slide that compares the potential what I call a core economy, which is 5 quadrillion hours. So what I'm showing now is a comparison between a potential 5 quadrillion dollar core economy. If we could somehow figure out how to make that hour worth $1 each, next to the picture of the pyramid, which is 310 trillion. So what will be showing up on my screen at the moment is a very small picture of a pyramid over here, and the size of a big circle, like a cell, that is 25 times bigger than that little picture of the pyramid. So that's where we're comparing the 5 quadrillion to the 310 trillion. So I'm showing a slide now where there's 25 boxes of the pyramid, and then it's overlaid by a big oval that represents a big organic cell. And now it says that 25 of these market economies, which is represented by the pyramid picture, could fit into one of the core economies. Now that is if we can figure out how to make that $1, that 1 hour, valued at $1 each. So what I'm showing here now is 1 hour at the moment costs us 4 cents. It costs us 4 cents of our lives that we are giving to the market economy just for the right to live. When you take the average hour of a billionaire, If they add $1 billion to their net worth in a year, their hour is worth $114,155. And it doesn't matter if they're working, they're playing, they're sleeping, or doing whatever they're doing. The millionaire, they're up there in the thousands. We're down here at the 4 cents. How do we create a balance? How do we balance that out? And that's what we're going to be talking about over the next 3 weeks, how to leverage our time as an asset to create the balance so that we can include all socioeconomic classes in this conversation as we here in the Commons we're playing out this vision, of how do we get to decide, or how do we get to choose our own destiny and not have it decided by something outside of us or someone outside of us. So that will all make sense when I finally put those slides in on the presentation. But now I'd like to open it up, since we'll go a little bit over here. But I'd like to ask everybody, after reflecting on this conversation, and we went in many different directions here tonight, which Janet, I'm glad that you were able to show up and contribute as you did. Thank you. I'd like to ask everybody, what is alive for you at the moment? What are you curious about? What did you appreciate about tonight? And I'd like to check in with all 4 of you before we close out for the night.
I'll tell you what I appreciate. I'm noticing that the more that I talk about these truths that I know in my heart, this one main truth that only love is real, the more excited I get, the more sure of it I get, and the better I'm getting at relaying it without stepping on someone else's toes or beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I'm curious about is, how do we get that across to those people at the top of the pyramid who are just running, who are holding all the puppet strings? It's all that. And I'm curious about the creative way, because Neff and Mike and I work together with all these really creative, we're always creating these incredibly creative ways to open a topic up. And so I'm just like challenged, like, how do you creatively talk to, a Rockefeller who just cares about money, or, that kind of thing?
And even more importantly, how do we open up the conversation so that Rockefeller feels safe enough to talk about
Exactly.
something other than money?
That goes with it. Yeah, that's it.
Great.
Thank
Excellent. We'll open the floor back up. What's alive for you? What are you curious about? What do you appreciate about what we covered tonight?
I'll hop in real quick. I really, really, really appreciated the layers. There are so many different layers, and like that's all within me. Every conversation that I participate in, I get to learn more about myself, and hearing others share where they're coming from, like, oh wow, I didn't think about that. Or wow, that's cool. And I can appreciate uh it comes back to like diversity and just how rich it is to be in the presence of another person and to be able to um, receive what, wasn't in my awareness field prior to. Um, there's something else you shared about the commons, and it's being continuous, like being in conversation with peers. And the Rockefeller is my peer. The ones that have, they're my peers. So like having that norm shift where it doesn't have to feel so awkward, that's really, really what I look forward to creating every opportunity I get. So thank you guys so much.
You know, I like that. How do we think of the different socioeconomic classes as peers, whether they have the money of a Rockefeller or they've been homeless for a couple of years? Thank you. Randy or Hanan?
Well, I had been dominating the conversation, so I was trying to give space for others.
No,
um,
I appreciate everything that you've contributed here tonight too, Randy.
um, so in regards to, gosh, again, I love this topic and I love all of you. I've been stimulated, invigorated. Oh my gosh. Um, I've got a popcorn mind right now.
Oh,
It's such- um, so in regards to again, so how Janet brought up Course of Miracles. I don't know about anyone else, but miracles, the water to wine, trotting across the water, all that kind of stuff, miracles. I don't think I'm a stone. I'm going to sink to the bottom. I don't see myself being anybody who's walking on water. But the Course talks about what the miracle truly is having this awakening that love is a constant, that there is sufficiency. There is actually a prosperity. There's more than enough for everyone involved. And this illusions, these again, my language, not the courses of these narratives of how we see things otherwise. The miracle is all of a sudden it's like, no, it's just frankly, Randy, it's just a story you got. And it's a very real story to you. It's as real as anything, but it's still a story. And when I can just kind of see the whole thing of that and just that's what I would when people ask me what the heck is a spiritual awakening is just to realize that there has been um a filter or maybe 50 filters between my thinking and how reality is operating. And that's one of the things why I love natural laws. This is not man-made laws that says it's, I don't know, it's wrong to go through a light when it's red. Okay. Well, what the heck? If I'm in a medical emergency, doc, I don't care if the lights red. I look right and left and stuff. There's no cars coming. You better believe I'm going through that light. That's a dumb law and that doesn't serve. But on the other thing, gravity doesn't care what the heck is going on. Gravity is a constant. Magnetism is a constant. So on and stuff. Just there's more to this, but to make my point, just the way nature is doesn't really care. This is the neutrality. It just doesn't care. It just is. And that's kind of the same thing with love. And again, using that word evil, when we start talking about, if there really truly is a loving God, typically the Judeo-Christian God, how does these terrible things happen? Whatever your laundry list of evil and atrocities are and stuff, how can there be? Well, again, this is kind of talking about the law of polarity. There must be a hot for there to be a cold. You must have something contrasting to realize it and such. And on the topic of love, there must be a choice. Love cannot be commanded. Again, even though love is a constant and it is relative as gravity, meaning if I don't think about it, again, it's still there. If I don't feel love, it's still there. Um, Again, it's just if we can kind of just acknowledge that there's something going on and it's beyond our vocabulary, it's beyond our intellect. Again, it's a knowing, and this my terminology is wisdom. There's innate wisdom with us, and morality and ethics get involved with this, but there's just kind of like an inner gyroscope might be the word again, or maybe thermostat might be a better word and stuff. We know when it's time to put the jacket on, it's so cold. And we know when it's so hot, we got to take the jacket off. There's this same knowing when things are not right. And again, it's not ethics, it's not evil and stuff. There's all of us that can, again, it's just this, and as I talked about again, there seems to be a consensus among the commons how this world, not just our country, is operating. This imbalance of power and this synthetic scarcity that's going on. That just ain't right. again, I bet you everybody listening here would not disagree for the fact that there is enough to sustain life in this world. Again, I'm using coming back to my clean water analogy. There is enough water on this air, and there's technology that we can filter seawater, and we can have enough to sustain life. But doggone it, billions of people, huge masses of people are restricted from being able to have that life-giving element for us. Something's amiss. And
Yep.
again, the challenge is those we've all kind of got our potato, what's right, what's wrong. Again, that's filtered through our minds. And I believe the solution is the higher consciousness to begin just the whole thing of being able to have somewhat of an awareness that these narratives, these stories are, how to say, nonfiction enough that they continue. There is enough sustainable, there's a collective consciousness that's sustaining us and stuff, but there's some fiction going on. Again, we believe certain things based upon the conditioning we grew up in, the family order and the society, our peers and such, the media and stuff, that allows us to continue that. Well, I grew up through I was an adult in the 80s. The greed is good.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone's alive at that Gordon Gecko Wall Street and stuff. There is nothing wrong with I'm gonna get mine before you get yours
Yep.
kind of stuff. This competitive nature and stuff. And it's a very Machiavellian, the means, the end justifies the means and stuff. But again, where does that come from? Scarcity and stuff.
Yep.
Why do I think it's okay for me to step on your back to get my slice of the pie, unless I feel that there's no other means for me to get what I need to get, which is my birthright as an American, is to climb that ladder and do whatever is necessary for that. And I'm sorry you got in the way of it and stuff. That just seems to be just fate and stuff, that you happen to be the carnage of my conquering of the world and stuff. Again, as I use these words, there's going to be some people I understand that may disagree in my verb, and I'm just rambling as I do at times because, again, I am invigorated. But I
Yep.
really, truly believe that there will be people at some point in time that they can go through an existential crisis and just kind of realize it ain't working, and we don't have all the answers and such. And maybe this thing that's intangible called love, though, will be what brings us to a balance point, and we move to a place individually and collectively where we're, again, there's not just a sustainability of this, and such that we are able to create a world that is beyond anything that I could ask for or even imagine right now. And I guess in closing and stuff, I think it's in regards to when we're talking about gender and stuff. The feminine energy is the creative energy. I think if we had more women leaders, and I don't mean to just because right now with this election that there is a woman running for president. I think in general and stuff, the feminine energy that is within myself and women and such, that energy, that nurturing and stuff, if that's reflected upon more, that is that collaborative energy that will get us through this and into a point where, again, I will use the word prosperity.
And I'm glad that we have two women and two men here tonight. So that's awesome. And Randy, what I really appreciated about what you offered just now, as well as how perfectly you're setting up next week's conversation. We're going to be talking a little bit about stock market mechanics and picking that apart, taking that apart, and how to kind of change the motor, how to change the machine, so to speak.